Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Genesis Invitational Golf DFS show. My name is Dylan Burd, here with my co-host Glen Goodman, and we are back after a 1-week hiatus. We're back to talk about golf, talk about the Genesis. We had a great show for the Waste Management. Had a week off last week, but we're back, and I'm excited.
Yeah, Dylan, really excited. It's a loaded field this week. It's almost major-esque in terms of field strength. So it's going to be a great week. And both of us had very successful DFS lineups for the Waste 2 weeks ago in Scottsdale.
Yeah, I mean, we did well. Obviously, two guys that we talked about a lot extensively during that show was Keegan Bradley in the 6K range and Matthew Neesmith in the 6K range. Neesmith was a co-leader after round one, and somebody in this chat had some financial stake on it.
Yeah, had Neesmith round one leader. Wasn't bad at all to have that payday, and played him in DFS in my single entry lineups too. So, whenever you get a 2% guy or whatever he was to come in like a T3, T5 finish, it was really good. Had Scotty Scheffler too. We talked about him, low-owned Scheffler, 6%. Got to have that. It sucked how Brooks ended up winning, so we didn't get any winner's equity, but it was successful nevertheless.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good week. I thought the first golf show went well. I should say second because we did do the Masters, but
we did do the Masters. Yes,
it was the first of the season. So that went well, and we're ready for the Genesis, which is basically like a major field here. Now, first, before we get into the Genesis Invitational here, and before we talk about the field, before we talk about the course info, just wanted to remind everyone about ThriveFantasy, a partner of SportsBird. ThriveFantasy is a daily fantasy sports app, but for player props. So that's perfect for anyone who loves player props. And if you watch my channel, if you watch my NBA player prop videos, I'm sure that is you. So it will present you 10 prop options for PGA. You got to pick 5 of them and put them in your lineup, and basically it'll give it a point total based on how risky it is. So the more risky the prop, the more points it is. The more points you accumulate, the better chance you have to win a cash prize. Now, the best part about this for PGA is if you're not into the whole cut sweat thing, then you could play each individual day. Each contest is an individual day for ThriveFantasy. So you don't have to worry about the cut sweat. You don't have to worry about, your days, your tournament being over after Friday. $75,000 guaranteed in prizes weekly on ThriveFantasy. If you sign up today using the promo code BURD, B-U-R-D, you receive an instant match bonus up to $50 with a deposit of minimum of $20. You can download ThriveFantasy on the App Store or Play Store, or check it out at thrivefantasy.com. So be sure to do that. Promo code BURD, ThriveFantasy. Look, if you're watching this video, you automatically have an edge on people, so be sure to check it out. But let's get into it. Genesis Invitational. This field is unbelievable, Glenn, and I'm extremely excited.
Oh, it's great. We were going to get Dustin Johnson last week after he came back from Saudi, but took the week off because of jet lag. Would have made, I guess, the field a little bit stronger last week when Berger won at Pebble, which was a great win. Berger is so good. That's 2 wins in, 8 months? It's kind of crazy how we didn't even qualify for the Masters last year, or the one in November. Anyway, that's mind-boggling. We'll see him in April this year. But, yeah, basically really excited for this week's field. Really strong across the board. The only named guy that is not playing this week is Webb, Patty Reed, Tyrrell Hatton. But other than that, across the board, straight studs. It really is going to have a major type field this week. Really believe so.
Yeah, so Genesis Invitational being played at Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades, California, which is the Los Angeles area. Par 71, 7,322 yards, POA greens. There are three par 5s, so it's sort of like the Waste in that way, the way the course is set up. You got hole 1, which is 511 yards, 59.6% birdie rate on hole 1. I mean, obviously, if more than half the field is birdieing it, you got to do it. Probably out of all the tournaments that we've done, out of all the tournaments we've broken down, that has to be one of the highest birdie rates I've ever seen on a hole. Hole 11, another par 5, 572 yards, 34.7% birdie rate. Hole 17, 589 yards, 28.6% birdie rate. So look, another course where there's a par 71, only 3 par 5s. If you are playing this tournament and you want to do well, you got to take advantage of those par 5s.
Yeah, the par 5s. I think hole 1 is, I think it's statistically maybe 1 or 2 of the easiest holes in all of PGA Tour. I think maybe day one on Thursday, it may play like 490-ish for a par 5. So obviously a good tee shot. You're on the green too, regardless, probably anything. But it's you're going to get some eagles there, and you're going to need them because this is a long course. There's some heavy, daunting par 4s, and there's a par 3 that plays like 240. You're going to have tough pin placements. You really got to birdie these par 5s. If not, you're essentially, losing strokes to the field, especially in a loaded field, especially on hole 1. I know one of the par 5s is probably going to play a little bit tougher, maybe towards the 600-yard range, but especially hole 1, you got to get a birdie there. Pars on the par 4s are what you strive for. So you got to get birdie somewhere, and why not hole 1?
Yeah, and then obviously we haven't spoke about yet hole 10, which is an extremely famous hole, the short par 4, playing at 285 yards. I'm sure that'll vary a little bit day to day. 26.6% birdie rate there. Rory called it on Golf Channel, had this video out today. Rory called it the quote-unquote best drivable par 4 in the world. So look, it's going to be a show on hole 10, and you got all these big hitters these days. We know pretty much every golfer on tour could reach. It's just the green, the way it's set up, the green is extremely narrow, and basically there's a ridge just short of the green, and then there's trees to the left of the green. So if you miss left, you could be kind of in the trees a little bit, behind the trees. Then there's a lot of bunkers surrounding the narrow green to the right. So it's not an easy. It is an easy hole in terms of birdie rate, but it's one that you need to birdie, and you got to make sure you have a good tee shot on there. But it should be an interesting hole to watch. I mean, Bubba Watson, I was reading, said he's played the hole a million different ways before and still does not know the proper way to play it. So it'll be interesting.
That's what you love. Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, these short par 4s are really good. And speak of the short par 4s, last week at Pebble, they moved the tees back. I think it may have been 10 there also. They moved the tee. It was playing like 440, 450, maybe 460 a couple days. And they moved it up to 340 on Sunday. So it was like 100-yard difference. So it really is good. And you spoke about it great. All these players love this par 4, and it's great to watch as well. When guys are driving the green on the par 4, it's exciting. It really, if you're down 2 strokes, drive the green, you have an eagle putt right there. Or, tree trouble, as you said. I know added bounce play is pretty pivotal in that as well. So a lot of things could happen on those short par 4s.
Yeah, and I just want to get into what stats are going to matter on this course. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is approach. Obviously, always matters. We always weight approach heavily. This time, I'm weighting approach in my model on fantasynationalgolf.com. I'm also weighting a few different approach categories as well. So 150 to 175 yards, that's the most common approach on this course. So I'll be weighting that significantly. And then tied pretty much in second as the 2 next most important approach ranges are 175 to 200 and 200 plus at around the same in second place there. So I'll be weighting those approaches as well. Also, as we just mentioned, strokes gained par 5s are going to be extremely important. Strokes gained par 4s, from 400 to 450 yards, and then 450 to 500 yards. Those are going to be extremely important. Now, why? That there are 5 par 4s between 400 and 450 yards. There are also 5 par 4s between 450 and 500 yards. So those 2 categories are extremely important. You're going to have to gain somewhere on those par 4s. What else are you looking at in terms of stats this week? I have a few more here, but I want to get your take first before we go on.
Yeah. So I usually normally weight driving distance pretty high, but some courses, you don't need the full-on drivers like the Webbs of the world who can stick their wedges really well. But on this course, I really am weighting driving distance as the number 1 weight on my Fantasy National Golf model, whatever you want to call it. The way I'm approaching Riviera this week is the longer hitter should win. If you're driving the ball top 10 in the field, those longer par 4s, let's say a 470-yard par 4, you may have 135, 140 with just a high iron right there, maybe even a wedge, Bryson, stuff, longer hitters like that. So if you drive the ball really well in terms of driving distance, it'll set you up to have some nice shorter approach shots hopefully land it in. And then it's just a putting week as well. Obviously, it always is. Tournaments are won on the greens, and we're going to have POA greens this week. A little bit fast, pretty rocky. It's going to be, definitely you'll see a lot of 3-putts this week, and that's the name of the game. Who can stick those putts? So longer shots lead to, shorter approaches and hopefully closer putts. So that's the way I'm going, driving distance.
Yeah, I mean, I am weighting strokes gained off the tee and driving distance a little bit as well, as it is a longer course. Now, you mentioned something that I thought was very interesting. So obviously, I know you barely weight putting in your model at all. I always weight it like slightly, like 5%. But something you mentioned is you're going to see a lot of 3-putts this week. Now, one thing that I decided that I was going to weight this week as well is 3-putt avoidance. I think it's pretty important this week. If you go on fantasynationalgolf.com, the winners have significantly avoided 3-putts more than, pretty much everyone else in the field. That's a huge factor this week, 3-putt avoidance. So I'm basically going to weight putting a little bit and then weight 3-putt avoidance as well. Also, we have scrambling. So I think that I weighted scrambling minimally, like probably around 2%. Obviously, I'm going to give everyone the direct model, the exact model I use, but I thought that, I was digging through some stats on Fantasy National Golf here, and I thought it was pretty interesting that the scrambling percentage here is a little bit higher than normal, and the driving accuracy here is a lot lower than normal. So you figure that guys are going to have to scramble. In addition, the driving accuracy basically has no correlation with the winner at all. In fact, the winners actually had less average fairways gained compared to the field, according to Fantasy National Golf. So that just shows that driving accuracy is not really important at all here. So just something to keep in mind. I did weight scrambling slightly, also weighted around the green a little bit as well, which I normally like to do, and also weighted slightly greens in regulation, which is always important here as well, as the winners had significantly more greens in regulation than the rest of the field.
Yeah, around the green is also very important here. There's a lot of bunkers on these holes. Even if the hole is short, you're going to have a lot of bunkers around it. I know hole 10 has a lot of bunkers around it. The rough shouldn't be too bad in terms of thickness, but around the green always important. And in a field like this, you need to scramble well. You need to go up. You need to get up and down well to save par. Who can have these 3 to 4 foot putts for par to save par instead of the 6 to 7 to 8? And obviously you hit the nail right there with 3-putt avoidance. So I guess that basically means don't pick Nate Lashley this week.
That was brutal to watch last week. I feel for the guy, because everyone who has played golf before has been in that situation before. I cannot imagine having it happen where it basically costs you like $600K based on that, that 3-putt on, I believe it was 16 at Pebble. Now, I will read down my exact model right now. So this is a complicated one. I thought that the waste management, building the model, was a lot more straightforward than the Genesis. I think there's a lot of things that go into this course, just the way it's set up. I have 10% strokes gained off the tee, 20% strokes gained approach, 7% strokes gained around the green, 3% strokes gained putting, 10% strokes gained par 5, 6% strokes gained on par 4s, 450 to 500 yards, also 6% on strokes gained on par 4s, 400 to 450, 8% driving distance, 5% greens in regulations gained, 12% proximity, 150 to 175, 4% proximity, 175 to 200, 4% proximity, 200 plus, and then I basically did 3% 3-putt avoidance, 2% scrambling. So I kind of did the method of, I know me and you have a lot different methods to do modeling, and honestly, both of ours worked, last time we did it in the waste management. So it just shows that multiple different methods of modeling and weighting could all work out. You tend to more just weight the more important categories more, where I try to get everything in there to be more precise. So would love to hear your model as well, because I know that we're going to have significantly different models, even though it may end up with similar results.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm home this week instead of school, so I don't have my monitor next to me to look at, so I'm using my phone. But I'm weighting driving distance the most this week at 30%. I was considering 40%. I go, okay, that's a little bit too much. Driving distance 30%, around the green 20%. So that's right there, half right there, 50%. Opportunities gained. So I guess how many times are you within 15 feet for birdie look relative to the field? at 15%, approach 15%, par 4 efficiency from 450 to 500 at 10%, and then 3-point avoidance 5%. And I also weighted DraftKings points at 5%. Some of these guys are just score well in DraftKings. Now, I want to explain this a little because I think it's an important thing to mention. Let's have two players, for example, a Luke List and a Tyler Duncan. And these two guys can both, let's say they finish the same score at -7. How are they getting to the -7? Tyler Duncan's probably going to have a lot more pars, less birdies, and less bogeys. List may have a ton of birdies, but he may get like 4 doubles. In terms of DraftKings, that's going to be more. He's going to have more points in terms of because he's birdieing. So I weighted DraftKings points a little bit. Wanted to see if that can spice up couple of things. The Fratellis of the world, stuff like that. They accumulate a lot of DraftKings points. 3 birdies in a row. Obviously, there's a boost on DraftKings for that. So just sprinkle that in there because why not?
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see how that works out. That's not something that I have ever done, but I think that it is an important point that you did bring up, that some guys will have the same score, but score, differently based on how they golf. But I do want to get right into the 10K range now that we spoke about the course. Look, I'm excited to talk about the 10K range here. We obviously have so first of all, we got a visual for this week. We got the little ticker on the bottom for the pricing. So we're going to have that for each range. And we have 6 guys that we are going to talk about in this range, this 10 to 11K range. That is, do we have 6 or 5 actually? Five guys that we're going to talk about in this range. That is Dustin Johnson at 11,300, Justin Thomas 10,700, Rory McIlroy 10,500, John Rahm 10,400, Bryson DeChambeau 10,100. Where are you looking right now in terms of this grouping?
Yeah, so we said at the waist, most of the top tier guys have similar win equity. We hit the nail on Xander. Too bad he couldn't get it done on Sunday. But in terms of this week, I mean, I hate to say it again, you really can't go wrong with any of these guys, but I definitely will have some DJ shares. I think his heads and shoulders above the field, but 11.3 is pretty steep. I think you are getting maybe a little bit of discount on Rahm at, what is he, 10.4. I think that the second probably best golfer in the world, I guess him and JT are subject to change at 10.4, could be a little bit of a bargain, and as well as Bryson at 10.1, being the longest hitter on tour and obviously playing well and has played this course progressively better each time he's played at Riviera. So I hate to sound like a broken record. This 10K range is accurately priced in terms of the top guy, Dustin Johnson, but I guess Rahm at 10.4 with, I guess, Rory and JT ahead of him, maybe a little bit of a head scratcher in terms of consistency, but probably going to pivot to ownership, as we always say.
Yeah, I mean, look, we say the same thing with the 10K range each week. Any of these guys here could win the tournament. I don't think you could go wrong with taking any of them. Now, the question is, are you going to get a big discount somewhere along the lines here? Now, one mistake that we made, and honestly, it was kind of a misread by us. We thought that Rory was going to be an ownership discount at the waist. He wasn't. He ended up having a nice Sunday to have a pretty solid finish in the tournament. But I think that, it just goes to show that ownership projections are not always the most accurate. Obviously it's a great tool to help. But yeah, you have to be careful for sure. Now, I will not be going back to Rory after just his play is just, I mean, that was a roller coaster for us at the Waste Management. He'd have days where he's grinding at a US Open he's grinding at a tough course at the Waste Management, and then days where, like Sunday where it looks so easy. And I think his game is just not where it's supposed to be right now. So I likely will not be going to Rory at 10.5. I for sure will be going to Dustin Johnson at as the highest priced guy at 11,300. Yeah, he's the highest priced guy, but it's definitely, warranted. I mean, he's Dustin Johnson. He's first in my model this week. He ranks in his last 24 rounds, according to Fantasy National Golf, ranks first in approach, 10th in around the green, in strokes gained around the green, first in strokes gained par 4s from 450 to 500 yards, 13th in strokes gained 400 to 450, fifth in driving distance, first in greens in regulation, third in three-putt avoidance. Look, you can't go wrong with Dustin Johnson. He's the favorite in this tournament for a reason. So I will be going to Dustin Johnson. He will come with ownership with pretty high ownership as well. But honestly, I don't care about that. I will look to pivot other places in terms of ownership. Other guys I'm looking at. I probably will play some of Rahm at 10,400 just because I think it's a little bit of a puzzling price for him. Probably will get to Bryson as well at 10,100. Now, like you said, Bryson being the longest hitter on tour has obviously a bigger advantage. Now, he did not show up high in my model. He showed up actually 31st in my model, Bryson, but fourth in, but he's going to be, first in strokes gained off the tee. That's pretty much almost a given every single week. Like he's up there at least top 3, top 5 at minimum. The one thing with Bryson is sometimes, the approach is wishy-washy, and as a result, that's why he's a little bit lower in my model. I don't worry about that too much with him. Now, I think that one guy I'm going to definitely keep an eye on, if we're looking at ownership strictly here, one guy again, this is just Monday night, so ownership is not great right now, not a great sample size at all. However, in weeks prior, it usually doesn't change too much. So, it could change, but Justin Thomas right now coming in at, pretty low owned compared to these other guys, kind of around the same as Rory, but I'm not going to Rory. But if JT is going to get an ownership discount, that's a no brainer for me. JT ranks 4th in my model, 10th in strokes gained approach, 5th in strokes gained around the green, 2nd in strokes gained par 4s, 450 to 500 yards, 7th in strokes gained in a proximity, 150 to 175, and 10th in scrambling, plus top 20 in a bunch of other categories that I listed out before. So I think that, I could be looking at 4 of these. I could be, probably playing 4 of these guys. Probably not Rory, but I probably will look to get 4 of these in the lineup. Now, I think that who I get the most of will probably depend on ownership plus Dustin Johnson.
Yeah. I agree, but I'll have exposure to all these guys, but obviously Dustin is clearly the best golfer in the world, and that price is warranted. And then the next question you got to ask yourself is, you want to stack JT and DJ, and then I guess you're going to have to go straight to the 7K range around, or do you want to start with Bryson and then maybe get a guy in the upper 9s and then mid 8s and then go down? So there's a lot of strategy we could work with here. Can't go wrong with any of these guys, but obviously Dustin has, I guess, the biggest win equity. He's like 5.5 to 1 to win the tournament, which is crazy considering he was, I think, 5.5 to 1 last week in an awful field before he withdrew. And then you add 10 amazing golfers, 10 of the best golfers in the world into the field, plus others in the 20s and the 30s, and he's the same price. So Dustin is clearly the best in the world. You clearly read all his stats. It's one across the entire board. So yeah, are you gonna have him first and then pair him with a lower 10K range, or go straight to the 9s, or do you want to go him and Rahm or him and JT then go down? Obviously we'll discuss this, but this pretty sums it up on the 10K range.
I want to mention one thing before we move on to 9s, is that I think that we were completely strong on going stars and scrubs for the waist. Now, did that pay off for us? Yes, but we did miss out on the winner ultimately in the 8K range in Brooks Koepka, both of us. That being said, I think that this week I'm leaning more away from stars and scrubs off first glance. I think that there are a lot of guys in the 9, 8, 7K range that I want, high 7K range, I should say, that I want to get to. So I think that I'll be going more of a, not completely balanced, but I would say like maybe one from each tier or something like that, more along the lines of that rather than a stars and scrubs lineup. That's just me off of first glance.
Yeah, it probably could be the safer play. It's obviously nice having that balance, and you're not relying on those, lower to mid 6K guy ranges. I had to rely on, I guess, Doc Redman at the waist. He barely missed the cut. I think he 3-putted from like maybe 12 feet, something like that, to miss the cut. So it's definitely, you probably have a better chance of getting 6s of 6s going the route of a more balanced lineup. This week, it's a tougher course than waist. by a lot, obviously. So yeah, I think you can't go wrong with either. It's just preference at that point, but I am for a balanced lineup this week as well. Maybe not dip your toes into that lower sixes, just maybe stay on the higher sixes, 68 plus to get that more balanced. Maybe not even dip into the sixes, go sevens as your min, for sure.
Yeah, now let's move into the 9K range here. Again, got to get our graphic up for the 9K. We have Xander Schauffele at 9,900, Brooks Koepka 9,700, Patrick Cantlay at 9,600, Colin Morikawa 9,500, Daniel Berger 9,400, Tony Finau at 9,300, Jordan Spieth, who is charging up based on the last 2 weeks, 9,200, Hideki Matsuyama 9,100, and then Adam Scott, the winner of last year's Genesis Invitational, at 9,000. What is your take off of first glance on this 9K range?
Yeah, personally, I think it's a loaded range. I think there's a ton of golfers in this range that are just exceptional, really provide amazing win equity. Xander at 99, I think that was my first thing that I looked, and I go, wait, Xander's not in the 10K range. You're probably going to have an insanely high ownership tag with him. But come on, I think all of us can agree maybe Xander is maybe the second best in terms of consistency right now outside of DJ. Maybe he's the most consistent golfer. I think he's won in DK points in my model. I mean, at 9,900 for that guy, look, even though he doesn't win, he's there every week on Sunday. Second place finishes, third, fifth, final pairing, this, that. So he caught my eye, but also Cantlay caught my eye, went to him. Finished last week very strong. Honestly thought he was going to win. Just had a cold putter. Couldn't make his 12-footers. He's playing amazing golf right now. He was the runner-up to Siwoo at the Amex, I believe. He's coming home to his hometown. He is from the area. Says he loves Riviera. And he says he's playing his best golf of his career right now. So Cantlay I'm looking at the tracker on the bottom, 9,600. Why not? Sign me up. He's playing great golf. Probably going to take a flyer on Brooks. Maybe he's partying too hard after his waste win. Doesn't normally like California that well, playing here at least. But yeah, my eye gravitated towards Xander at 9.9 and Cantlay at 9.6. Pretty low, I think, for Cantlay. Could have thought maybe he was 9.8, 9.9.
Yeah, so I think you make a few pretty good points here. Just want to read off some early ownership projections. I should say way too early ownership projections for the 9K range. You got Xander coming in at 16.9%, the highest owned guy projected in the entire field, which is completely what I expect. You touched on it. I tweeted about it earlier. I expect Xander to be the most owned guy in this field. I mean, 9,900 is a pretty ridiculous price for a guy like Xander. I think he should definitely be in the 10K range. He ranks second in my model, and honestly, I think that the ownership may be so high that it could be worth trying to fade him this week. But then again, I think to myself, in a top 5 machine, how could I do that? So I'm currently neutral on him right now. I'm not exactly sure which way I'm going to go, but way too early ownership projections. You got Xander at 16.9, Brooks at only 8%, Patrick Cantlay 15.9%, Colin Morikawa 12.5%, Daniel Berger coming off a win 6.9%. Tony Finau, 14.4%, Jordan Spieth, 5.6%, Hideki Matsuyama, 8.9%, Adam Scott, 13.3%. Again, these are per Fantasy National Golf. Now, I want to bring up what you said about Patrick Cantlay playing some of the best golf of his career. Now, Patrick Cantlay, the last 2 tournaments he's played in, Pro-Am, AT&T Pro-Am, Pebble, gained 12.7 strokes. Now, the Amex, the one before that, the tournament he played in before that, he gained 16.5 strokes. Think about that. And he didn't win either one. Came in second and third. Now, what held him back? I wouldn't say anything particularly held him back. I guess his putter was a lot colder for Pebble Beach. He gained 6.6 strokes putting at the Amex, 2.8 on the green at Pebble. But yeah, I think Patrick Cantlay, even with the ownership, is a guy that's a must play based on how he's playing comes in 21st in my model, which isn't great, but honestly, his proximity from 150 to 175 is at 116. So that's just completely driving down his stock, and almost everything else is ranked in the top 10 or top 20 out of the stats I used. So that's a little bit of an outlier that's bringing him down. Also, his proximity from 200 plus to 93. I'm not too worried about based on how he's been playing. Clearly, it's not been reflected in his scoring. So yeah, Patrick Cantley, a guy that I really like this week. I already gave you my thoughts on Xander. Brooks, I probably will not go to this week. I think that a few guys you got to look at for sure. If I can get owned, I know it's not very often that guys win back-to-back weeks, but if I could get Daniel Berger at what did I say he was 6.9% ownership. I don't know if he'll end up being that low, but if I could get Daniel Berger at low ownership, I feel like that's hard to pass up personally.
Yeah, it is hard. It's like saying Scotty Scheffler 6% in the field at the waist. Just off Scotty playing pretty poorly before that. But yeah, it's always tough getting the winner after playing the winner the previous week. Who knows? Berger is on his boat probably right now, which is named, I think, DB Straight Vibin. So we don't know if he's going to come out, too well. No, I say that jokingly. Berger's a phenomenal golfer, and 6% own. I'm going to have him in some lineups for sure. We didn't discuss Finau. Finau's also playing really well, consistent. You're always going to have the high ownership with him. Another really long hitter that maybe the average golf fan doesn't think Tony Finau. I think Finau is top 3 in driving distance. Playing really well too. I mean, he always plays well. But he could have won in Saudi. Gave DJ a big run for his money. I think he bogeyed 2 of the last 3, typical Tony fashion. But yeah, this 9K range, it's loaded. I probably will be fading Brooks as well. I will have exposure to most of these guys in the 9K range, not much of Brooks. So if I had a fade, it would be him out of this range. I know we didn't speak about much, but Scott is the defending winner here. He's not playing well right now. His irons are completely off. So his approach game is really struggling. Pretty much can't get all that facet all together to play a consistent tournament, but he is the defending champ. He won here last year. I don't know when the last time we saw him, maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe the week before Waste. I think we saw him and he was in contention. It was the week Reed won, I believe. That was the week. So yeah, that pretty much sums what I think of the 9K range. Any last comments on you in terms of this range?
Okay, so I just wanted to bring up a few things. So first of all, Finau is a guy that I'm looking at, comes in 8th in the model. I mean, 4th in proximity, 150 to 175, which we mentioned is the most common approach shot on this course. Also 4th in proximity, 200 plus. We know the guy's going to hit great off the tee. 12th in driving distance in the last 24 rounds, and honestly, he's normally higher than that. 22nd off the strokes gained off the tee in the last 24 rounds, and once again, he's normally higher than that. So I think Finau's, he's one of those guys that you could, like Xander, but like to a little bit of a lower price range. You could expect Tony Finau, if you play him, to finish really, really well. Obviously, he'll come with ownership, but I like him. Now, I do want to mention an anomaly that I found in Hideki Matsuyama, who we didn't talk about at all. Just an interesting stat. I probably will not play Matsuyama. Comes 34th in my model. Hasn't been playing great at all. And the reason why is he just can't putt for his life. But ironically, he ranks 106th in terms of strokes gained putting in his last 24 rounds, but he ranks 5th in 3-putt avoidance. Just an interesting stat there. So he can't putt. He loses strokes putting, but he doesn't 3-putt ever.
Yeah, I guess that just means he, misses his 12 to 15 footers, 20 footers, 25 footers. I can't get any to fall down that week. Matsuyama's a good golfer. Let's face the facts. The guy's irons when he's playing well are second to none. I think if he's a low ownership play, I think you could get a 9-1 Hideki. Before I think I texted you before. Could we get like 8-7 Matsuyama, maybe 8-8, maybe 8-9? Which I think he may have been an auto play down there. 9-1, I guess maybe. Or DraftKings, not giving you much discount there on him. The guys ahead of him, obviously you can't argue. Maybe Spieth, but he's playing amazing right now, so sure you can. I guess Matsuyama doesn't 3-putt much.
And one other guy I want to mention here that we didn't get too much into, Colin Morikawa finished 7th in the last 2 tournaments he played. on a course where I feel like approach is going to matter a ton.
And he loves Cali. He loves Cali.
I mean, he's a Cali guy. It always does. This is a guy who always gains in approach. I mean, comes 15th in my model, ranks 5th in strokes gained approach in his last 24 rounds, 1st in proximity 175 to 200, 23rd in proximity 150 to 175. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be lights out with his irons. I think that'll help him a lot. So, yeah, I'll definitely be sure to get some more Kala this week.
For sure. We both love Colin. I expect a big week out of Colin.
And now
he's definitely playable.
Yeah, I mean, and now let's move on to the 8K range here. Some interesting names. I feel like with the 8K range here, I'm either way in or way out on people. So let's read it off. We got Bubba Watson, a 3-time winner here at $8,900. Joaquin Niemann, $8,800. Victor Hovland, $8,700. Mark Leishman, $8,600. Scotty Scheffler, $8,500. Cameron Smith, $8,400. Will Zalatoris, Willie Z, $8,300. Max Homa, who's been playing great lately, $8,200. And Matthew Wolf, $8,100. And last but not least, in the 8K range, 8K flat, we got Jason Kokrak. Early thoughts on the 8K range?
Yeah, it's scattered. Obviously, in terms of golf quality, from 8,000 in Kokrak to the guy that headlines it. I mean, not even Bubba, but Hovland at 8,700. In terms of quality of golfer, that is huge. I think you could get a little bit discount on Hovland here, to be honest. At 8.7, I think people can argue Hovland may be 9.1, 9.2. But it just shows you that when there's such a loaded field that there is this week, and in terms of difficulty and field strength, it's like major-esque, World Golf Championship-esque. So 8.7 Hovland, I mean, you may not see this that often, especially if he has a good week here this week. Haven't checked his ownership yet, Dylan. So if you want to, I don't know what he's currently trending at, but Hovland's a great golfer. He's playing well too. Could have won the tournament. Reed won. I'm blanking out on that, but the name of that. But yeah, I think he's a great golfer, and irons are really dialed in. The putter is getting better also. I expect Vic to have a huge week, and I'm definitely going to have a lot of stake at him at 8,700.
Yeah, it was the Farmers Insurance Open.
The Farmers at Torrey. He played a tough Torrey Pines. They played tough Torrey Pines really well, and it was that last 5-hole stretch which ended up costing him some money. But I think he finished top 5. He
finished second place. So I mean, I have Hovland at 9th in my model. I'm huge on him this week. I think, like you said, you get a price discount. As a result, he's the highest projected owned guy in the 8K range at 14.1% on Fantasy National Golf's way too early ownership projections. Ranks 8th in strokes gained off the tee last 24 rounds. 5th in strokes gained par 4s 450 to 500. 3rd in greens in regulation games. 2nd in proximity 200 plus. Victor Hovland, I think you get a great discount here. Now, let me talk to you. Oh, wait.
Before you, I just want to say, I can just picture Hovland on the 10th tee right now. The announcer saying, oh, he's going to lay up on this. It's tough pin placement today. It's really narrow. He doesn't want to avoid that bunker. I could see him talking to his caddy, whipping out that big driver and just driving that green. He has no nervousness in terms of, afraid to drive the ball, drives afar. I'm all in on Hovland this week.
Yeah, so I'm huge on Hovland. Now, a few other guys I want to mention is Joaquin Niemann at 8,800, ranks 13th in my model. Look, this is going to be a breakout year for Niemann. Really young, has been playing phenomenal each time he's out there. 13th in the model, 10th in strokes gained off the tee last 24, 1st in strokes gained par 4, 450, 400 to 450, 9th in driving distance. So, I mean, look, these are all important stats this week. 14th in greens and reg. 15th in proximity 175 to 200, 28th in proximity 200 plus. The one stat that is not great here, that's honestly probably bringing him down, is that he ranks 104 in proximity 150 to 175, which is the most common shot. Not too worried about that based on the way he's been playing in general. Look, I'm huge on Niemann. Yeah, he's going to probably have significant ownership as well with the way he's been playing, but I like him. And look, just keep in mind that if you're going to take one of these high-owned guys, then make sure that that in the 9K range, you take one of the low-owned guys. Just scatter it a little bit and make sure you're not just taking complete chalk throughout the way. Another guy doesn't rank high in my model at all. It's 67, but Scotty Scheffler projected below 6% ownership again at 8,500. If he goes that low, I think that his stats in my model, his rank in my model at 67, it's being brought down by the 2 tournaments he played before Waste, which he was awful in. But golfer.
Yeah.
And I mean, Will Zalatoris, another guy. Will Zalatoris, third in my model, didn't play well last week at Pebble. Gets a significant price discount here at 8,300. Will he probably be decently owned at that price? Maybe, but I think that you could see a little bit of an ownership discount on Zalatoris due to the fact that he just didn't play well last week. And a lot of the amateur people who join these contests go strictly off of how they've been playing. So I think you could get a little bit low ownership. But the number one guy that I want to talk about, sorry that I'm dragging this out a little bit, but I am absolutely huge on Matthew Wolff at $8,100 this week. I'm huge in terms of the betting market for him. He's 80-1. I think that's a must bet. Now, early ownership here, coming in at just 6.5%. Good reasoning for it. He's playing like garbage lately, if we're being honest. I mean, just looking at his previous results here, 36th in Waste, 40th in Amex, missed the cut at the Masters, which was the tournament before that he played. But I mean, look, those last 2 tournaments, 36th and 40th. Is he playing well? No. Is he a guy that could turn it on at any moment? Yes. And I also want to say that he ranks very highly in my model. Ranks 20th in my model. So 8th in his last 24 rounds. He's 8th in approach. He's first in proximity 150 to 175, which is one of the most important stats in my model this week. 6th in proximity 200 plus. What is killing him right now? He's 116th around the green. So that's a problem. Okay. But if he could just have a decent around the green week, I think that his approach, and obviously this is a guy who hits it a mile off the tee. For me, getting Matthew Wolff, one at $8,100, which is as cheap as you'll probably get him the rest of the year. $8,100, add that to the ownership you're going to get him at, which could be very low. I think it's a must play.
Yeah, and the Wolff construction, if you want to go that route, obviously probably depends on, which are the upper tier guys you're going with. Are you going with a DJ? Or are you going with maybe a lower price Bryson? Or you start even at the high 9K range, which you definitely can this week because there's elite talent there. But yeah, Wolff, inconsistent at its finest. We know how good he can be. U.S. Open going into Sunday with a lead. Finishes at great tournaments elsewhere. If Matthew Wolff can have an average around the green week, get the driver going a little bit. Last some nice eagle putts, I'm sure, on one. Get his birdies in bunches as he always does. Sure, 8,100. Pretty low for him. But, as we say, an 8,100 Matt Wolff last week, if he were to play at AT&T, and if he was 8,100, obviously he wouldn't be because the field was so bad compared to this week. But the field this week, so good. And an 8K range, which is definitely, spattered. I'd rather have Wolff than, maybe a Zalatoris this week or even a Scheffler. Or a Cam Smith, but there's good golfers here. And a lot of these golfers are, trending in the right direction. Scheffler obviously was in the final grouping Sunday, last week, 2 weeks ago at the Waste. But yeah, I can definitely be persuaded into playing Wolff this week. And you mentioned around the green needs help. So hopefully he's not really in those deep bunkers around the greens, this week, or even the fairway bunkers. And you mentioned Niemann as well, who is trending in the right direction, and he's just a phenomenal golfer. And I'm excited for this week for Niemann. He's been off. I think he's been back in Chile. He's dealing with family tragedy, stuff like that. I believe someone has cancer in his immediate family or cousin. He's been doing great things with that. So we give them our regards and well wishes down there. But Niemann's back. I see him on Insta stories. He's at the driving range every day. He's putting in the work. And that's really when you can learn from some of these guys. Where are these current forms? Let's go to their social medias. They post. That's how you can maybe get a little bit of edge. Is Matthew Wolff, feeling it this week? Who knows? Maybe go to his Insta stories. How is he driving the ball? How is he talking to the reporters? What is he saying to the fans? And honestly, in a game of golf that's so individual based, why not go that extra route, extra bit of research? Maybe you want some of those intangibles that really, can go that long way.
Yeah, of course. And with that, let's get right to the Instagram stories of the 7K range. So I'm not going to read off all the 7K guys because it's just way too many, but few guys. So I think that 7K range, you have your guys that have been very chalky the last few weeks, and those guys will continue to be very chalky. Am I going to play some of those guys? Yes, but do you have to look at some of these guys who could possibly bring in low ownership as well? Yes. So I'm going to talk about some of the guys up in the upper 7K range here. Guys who are going to be very popular. You got Carlos Ortiz, Siwoo Kim, Cameron Tringali, Russell Henley always comes in very popular. These guys, look, they're all good plays this week. I think that if you look at their ownership coming in, early ownership, Carlos Ortiz coming in at 16.4 early projected ownership, and honestly, well deserved. He should probably be priced higher than this the way he's been playing. Russell Henley at 11% at 7,800 as well. Siwoo Kim at 9,000 at 9.5% coming in at 7,700. Cameron Tringali, another guy who's been in great form lately, 12.2%. But I think those are all guys that are going to be worth playing this week. The question is, again, don't stack them with other chalk guys. Just want to read a little bit of Carlos Ortiz lately. So first of all, I'll go down and say where these guys rank in my model. You got Henley, who ranks 16th in my model because of, his approach game is so good. He's always going to rank high in my model, and that's always the reason why he's high owned. Third in strokes gained approach, last 24. Third in strokes gained par 4, 400 to 450. Seventh in proximity, 175 to 200. So look, Henley's approach is always going to be great. He'll always be a popular play down in the 7K range. Carlos Ortiz comes in 22nd in my model. Again, great form recently. 8th and around the green. 7th strokes gained par 5. 3rd proximity 200 plus, and 1st in three putt avoidance, which we discussed is a very important stat this week. Now, I do want to talk about Siwoo Kim. So, Siwoo, 7th in my model, may just be one of my favorite guys from the 7K range, maybe my favorite.
Not even 7 on tour. We both love Siwoo.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a, I believe the last tournament he played, which was the Waste, he didn't play at Pebble, did he?
I think he missed the cut. He missed the cut. I think he missed the cut at
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
he missed the cut.
So actually, the last 3 events he's played, he's been very poor. Missed cut at Pebble.
Well, he won the Amex. Yeah.
Yeah, 50th at Waste. Missed cut at Farmers. Won the Amex. Gained 18.8 strokes at the Amex, and that has fallen off the next 3 tournaments. So, will you see that high ownership on Siwoo? I'm thinking that his actual ownership may be lower than what's projected. 7th in my model, 1st in strokes gained around the green. We know Siwoo's great around the green.
So good.
3rd in strokes gained, par 450 to 500 par 4s. 6th in strokes gained, par 4, 400 to 450. 9th in strokes gained, 150 to 175. These are all extremely important categories. If he could gain on par 4s, I mean, that's just going to give him an edge. Again, really good around the green, so he can minimize damage. Proximity 150 to 175, we mentioned once again, the most important golf shot on this course. I'm huge on Siwoo this week. And I mean, look, I'm not going to worry too much about his recent play. He's, generally been very good other than the last 3 weeks, just going before that. I think he'll bounce back. So yeah, I'm a huge Siwoo fan. Now you got Tringali also playing great golf. I believe his last three tournaments, he's finished top 20, all 3. Top 10 one of the times. He'll be extremely highly owned extremely high owned as well, ranking 17th in my model. Who are some guys that you're looking at up here in the 7K range as well?
No, I definitely agree with Siwoo. He's playing fine. Obviously, won at Amex. I mean, not many PGA Tour guys can say they won recently. And he seems like to win on every year on tour. Great around the greens player, so feel comfortable with him, having that 35-footer from the bunker, go up and down a safe par, 4 or 5 feet for par instead of 9-10 feet. Really does make the difference in the end when you're looking at the scores and the tracker on Sunday. Say, okay, where can this guy, if he would have parred this instead of bogeying it, he had a 4-foot putt, 3-foot putt instead of a 9-foot putt. So I really am waiting around the green a lot this week. I do expect the winner maybe to be in the -10, maybe 13 range. So it's going to be a struggle this week. So pars are going to be good on these long par 4s. So Siwoo definitely, as you said in your model, excels in that. Outside of the 7K range, the upper 7K range, we know Henley can get really hot with those irons. 12% Henley, probably not going to play much this week, honestly. I'm probably going to more pivot towards the lower-owned 7K range this week. Tringali's in good form, but I'm really going to focus my lineups around this range with Siwoo, as I do think the upper nines have similar value to most of these 7 ranges. Like, I'm not going to play Gary. I'm just not. He's just shown nothing in terms of my view. Molinari, maybe. I think he relocated to this area. His form has been pretty good outside of this past week on the weekend.
I'm
and him botching the number one.
Hoping he doesn't his drive again.
But he had 2 top 10s before this past week. So Molinari I'm also going to pivot to. So probably Siwoo and Molinari are the 1-2 punch from this range from my viewpoint.
And if you're looking for an ownership pivot, Francisco Molinari early ownership 1.6% on fantasy.
Yeah, I think that could be nice. Molinari, is very polarizing in terms of, maybe golf style and DFS playing, guys that love him, guys that hate him. But I think it's definitely could be worth it this week, especially with that low ownership. Really depends on the other lineup constructions, but I'm definitely going to have Molinari shares. And I'm honestly, after you say that, may have even more after that 1.6 Monday night projected ownership, subject to change, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, ranked, finished 8th at Amex, gained everywhere. Finished 5th at Farmers, gained everywhere except for putting, slightly lost. And then finished 59th in
which is like, just played decently well Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend, took the weekend off.
Yeah, I mean, ended up losing everywhere. But I mean, look, this is like what we said the last video we did. You can't get overly emotional based on how one player plays next week. It could switch on a dime.
Every week is independent. Yeah, you look at maybe recent form. We know Tringali played really well this past weekend. A ton of birdies out of him. But you really can't, sweat that recent form too much. These golfers, they flip the switch. And if they're playing, Molinari, said, I got 2 top 10s. I played Saturday, Sunday poorly at Pebble. That's what it is. And, the week moves on. And, we had to Riviera this week. So you can't fret upon the past. You really can't. And I know these golfers are mental, and it's all a mental game as well. I'm not putting anything besides that, taking away anything from that. But the mental game, matters, of course. But 1.6 Molinari, sign me up.
Yeah, and then we have mid 7K range. A lot of guys who are, again, they've just been guys who have been consistently playing well at this mid 7K range. Sam Burns will be highly owned, probably a solid play as well. You got Lanto, you got Norlander, both at 7.4. Now, a guy that I think is a little bit interesting here, we have, let me just get to him in my model. We have Charlie Hoffman, 7,300. Yeah, 7,300, Charlie Hoffman. Ownership coming in a lot lower than some of these guys in the 7K range. Charlie Hoffman's early ownership projected at 6.4, which is pretty good. Probably means it'll maybe be a little bit lower in the actual thing. Comes 28th in my model. Last 24 rounds, 14th in strokes gained off the tee, 16th in strokes gained par 4s, 450 to 500, 8th in strokes gained driving distance, 11th in greens and reg gains. Now, if you look at Chucky Hoffman from last week, finished 7th at the Pro-Am at Pebble, gained 11.9 strokes.
Had a great week.
He played really, really well, and he missed the cut at the Waste, but played great at Sony before that. Finished 14th. So I think that there could be something here with Charlie Hoffman. He is playing pretty well lately. Also, you get Luke List around that range at $7,300. Luke List, I mean, this is a guy that we go back to nonstop. And as a result, now he's 10% owned. Like you said, Luke List is a guy who's going to birdie a lot. He's going to bogey a lot. Could be good in terms of DraftKings. Good off the tee. Can't putt for his life. That's what you get with Luke List.
Yeah, I honestly think this lower to mid 7,000 range is honestly better than the top. We see James Hahn at 7,500. Could have won, a former winner. Yes, a former winner here, of course. I think he won and shot 6 under when it was tough conditions. Could be mistaken on that. Someone will need to fact check that in the comments. But I think Hahn is definitely a pivot down here. I'm definitely going to play him in some lineups. He's playing good golf, knows the course. Outside of that, Sam Burns also I'm going to play. I mentioned at the start of the show, at the top of the broadcast of our stream, that I'm weighting driving distance heavy. Sam Burns is a bomber. He drives the ball very far. Not afraid to whip out the big stick, the driver. So I will be playing Burns, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have a high ownership, maybe 10% attached to his name. But, in a field that when I'm looking at names on this bottom here that maybe not so much bombers, I know Davis drives it well, Harmon doesn't. I'll play Burns. I'll attach some of that ownership to get that longer driving. It's worth it, especially in these big contests. He has some top 10 equity as well. He's finished there before. He's had leads going to Sunday. He's been playing pretty good golf.
Yeah, so I do want to mention a few last names before we move on to the 6K range here. And I think a strategy once you get this low, and if you want to try and avoid some ownership, you take one of the indicators we spoke about, and you say, all right, let's take a guy that's maybe really highly ranked in one of these indicators. I mentioned how I love the proximity 150 to 175 stat this week. You have Brendan Steele at $7,100, ranks third in proximity 150 to 175. 41st in my model, so not great, but he does rank very highly in that one indicator, so I am going to be looking at him. Now, Kyle Stanley is a guy at 7K flat who I love this week. Stanley ranks 25th in my model, ranks 9th in strokes gained approach, 6th in green in regulation gained, 4th in, I just mentioned 4th in proximity 150 to 175, 4th in proximity 175 to 200, 8th in three-putt avoidance. So there's a lot of indicators to like with Kyle Stanley here. And you look at the ownership here. I mean, the ownership coming in with Brendan Steele, 5.3%. The ownership with Kyle Stanley, 3.8%. Two great places to ownership pivot on two guys who have pretty high ownership. High indicators, I should say here.
Yeah, I agree with that. And in my advice, the way I choose these lower 7,000 range, I take one of my so this week I'm probably just going to go driving distance. Out of these guys, who drives the ball the furthest, I'll weight that the most in determining who am I picking out of these low guys. I know Fratelli's probably could be leading this at 7,000, drives it really far. And I think Riviera this week is going to set up for that. Drive it far, have those 8-9 iron, maybe a wedge going in, and hopefully stick it within 20 feet of the hole, and then hopefully sink the putt. That's obviously going to determine who wins, who can hit those putts. But yeah, ownership obviously matters down here too. I don't want to play someone that high owned unless they're breathtaking in terms of another category. So definitely I agree with your points, Dylan, with that.
And now let's move into the 6K range. We'll quickly hit on a few guys. Like we mentioned, probably won't hit completely hugely on the 6K range. Maybe a few guys at 6'9" here. A few guys that I like in the 6K range. So Matthew Neesmith, obviously we pinned him out at the waist. He's been playing great. Had played well at Pebble once again this week. Finished 7th at waist, 16th at Pebble. Only issue you get with Neesmith is that he is coming in at 7.4% owned, which isn't that high, but it's not great for a guy down here. I don't think that's going to stop me too much from playing some of Neesmith. Also, Doug Gim comes in at 8.2% owned, so slightly high, but 6,900. Another guy who's just been consistently playing well lately. All these guys, Neesmith and Gim, they rank both of them. Like, let me get a quick check here on my model, but they both rank pretty decent. Gim ranks 27th in my model. Neesmith ranks 10. So I'll probably, at least look to get them. Now, if you're looking at another guy, now again, I said I'm going to just look at specific indicators here and say, what, maybe one of these guys ranks really high in a specific indicator. If you look at Peter Malnati, I know that you obviously had a first round leader bet on him. He's at 6,600 here, 32nd in my model. First in strokes gained putting in his last 24. 5th in strokes gained par fours, 400 to 450 to 500. 28th in proximity, 150 to 175. 26th in strokes gained approach. I think Malnati could be a solid play as well down here at 6,600 coming in. Not going to be highly owned pretty much at all, I believe. Yeah, 2.5% ownership right now.
Yeah. Malnati is also a guy that can pay off a lot of dividends in terms of DraftKings scoring. If you look at the scorecard for Malnati, you're not going to see 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 3. You're going to see 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 4, bogeys, birdies, and not a lot of pars, honestly, which is good for a guy in this range. Can Malnati make the cut and hopefully get a lot of birdies mixed in his rounds. That's where you're going to get the biggest payoff with these 6,000 range. And obviously his finishing position is going to matter a lot. But I do like Doug Gim. He's playing very well. He's been pretty consistent as well. So Gim I do like. Malnati I do agree with. Dare me to say it again, Doc Redman. I think he's at 6.6. So pretty much the same price I think that he was at the waist. Just make Doc make the cut. Have Doc go to Saturday, and I mean, Kenny Birdie 3 in a row. Whatever. I am a Doc Redman fan. He's great irons. Obviously, he hasn't been playing well recently. But from this range, from a pure talent standpoint, he's right there. So I think Gim, Redman, and Malnati, I do agree with you on that. And I'm going to avoid, anyone from 6'3" below. I don't think there's much value there this week. And I think you can balance your lineups where you really don't have to stretch your hand that far into the 6 range, if any at all. But for sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I get this far down, but if I had to give a dart throw from 6'3" and below, I would say Wesley Bryan. I always seem to play him every single time he's in the field. I don't know if I'll get to him at 6,100, but he does rank 33rd in my model, 7th in strokes gained approach the last 24 rounds. So, and he also has a top 4 finish here the last few years. So
interesting. So maybe a little Wesley Bryan action this week at Riviera.
If I go low, it will be Wesley Bryan, but I am mostly just targeting those guys in the upper 6s that we mentioned.
Yep, I concur with that.
Yeah, and that'll do it for the Genesis Invitational Golf DFS show. Look, really excited to keep this going throughout the rest of the golf season, we got the whole summer. We got a great stretch of tournaments coming up. And just remember, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @sports_Burd. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out. Really, really helps me out. Be sure to like it. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to get Glenn some Twitter followers here at Goody_21. I mean, we got to get some Twitter interaction going here between, trying to grow this golf show. Obviously, people have been on this channel watching NBA props. I would love for people to, start getting into golf. It's a lot of fun. So, if you're watching this video, press the like. Really helps us out. Anything else you want to say, Glenn?
Yeah, no, perfectly summed up. Thanks for having me on again. And the show is fun. We got a great stretch of golf coming up. And the loaded fields are nice. Football's in the rearview mirror now. So it's, golf is, in terms of my viewpoint, the forefront right now. So I'm excited, and hopefully we get some good DFS lineups this week.
Yeah, for sure. And I will be on Sal Vetri's YouTube channel on Wednesday on a stream talking about golf bets. So be sure to tune into that. But goodbye, everyone, and good luck with your DFS lineups this week.